Hey everybody, good to see you. It is June. Can you believe we're in June already? Seriously, June. Damn. Hey Ed, good to see you. Um, yeah, so it's showtime. We're going to talk about some stuff. Just kind of winging it tonight. So you can throw in comments anywhere you like. Um, got one thing on my mind tonight, and it's silly. It's absolutely silly. A and I put it up on a Facebook question. But let's see. I'm up to episode 6 on Spider Noir. It's definitely different. I'm still on the fence. I feel it does finish strong, in my opinion. But users' opinions may vary. So I loved it. Lisa loved it. A lot of people seem to like it. So, all right. So this was the question that hit me late last night, and I put it up on Facebook, and no one's replied to it yet. But you know how vampires don't see their reflection or don't give off a reflection, supposedly because the silver in the mirrors. But so the question was, if a group of frat boys came across a vampire sleeping in their coffin and do what frat boys do, which is draw stuff on their face. So if a frat boy drew a penis on the forehead of a vampire, would the vampire ever know? Because they don't see their reflection, so they look. They wouldn't look in a mirror, but if they did look in a mirror, they wouldn't see themselves. But then the question came: would they not see it, or would it just be the drawing floating in open space? See, that's my problem. When I get to the fantasy stuff, like when I write Lucius Fogg, I want answers. I'll either throw something out or, you know, uh, try to explain it. So, why don't vampires see their reflection? Is it silver? And if it is it just they don't see them, but their clothes are just kind of floating and stuff like that? See, that's the stuff I got to think about, you know? And usually it's a comedian making a joke that triggers this for me. Like the guy that talks about putting holy water in a humidifier says, you don't want to have a vampire problem. Would that be true? Seems like it could be true. Now, we're dealing with fictional characters, so yeah, those are the kind of things I think about. Those are the kind of things that actually keep me up late at night, trying to do the logic. Because deep down I'm a mystery writer, but I'm also a little bit of a science guy. So it's got to make sense to me. Star Trek's always been a big thing for me because they tried to, even the pseudoscience, they took the time to try to make it make sense. Even the GNDN tubes, you know, they tried. Let's see what Ed says. If he looked in the water, okay. I would say its vampire clothing is invisible. The paint would probably be invisible too. Yeah, see, I agree that if the clothing is invisible, then the ink and stuff would be too. But then you got to go to, well, why are they not reflective? There's a lot of stuff there. That's why when I write vampires, I tend to throw a lot of that stuff out. You know, only keep what kind of makes sense. And not much of it makes sense. So, all right, let's get into it. Let's talk about some of the TV shows I am currently watching. There's a show that I'm on third season of, and I don't know why I'm staying with it. I really liked the first season. The second season was okay. And the third season is starting really slow, and that is The Night Agent. I liked the first season, the uniqueness of it, the characters, but they've been trying to turn it into an ongoing thing now. And I believe they're going to have one or two more seasons. And vampires wouldn't need to shave they're dead, so their hair wouldn't continue to grow. It would just stay where it's at. But um, so yeah, The Night Agent. And I'm watching the third season, and I'm on the third episode, and it feels like a struggle, you know. And if you haven't watched the show, I'm going to give you one reason to watch it. And you could watch the first episode of season 3, most of the episodes in season 2. Anytime the main character of Peter runs, he's got to run someplace, you will see that this guy doesn't know how to run. It's bad. Which I thought was pretty funny. It's an inside joke between Lisa and I. We joke back and forth, but he can't run. But then I saw an interview with him, and somebody asked him about all the running in the show. And he's like, no, I don't train for the running because, it's not my thing. And all I could think of is, you're right. It is not your thing. You honestly don't know how to run. And there are some people that run so well. I mean, Tom Cruise is known for his running. Pierce Brosnan, when he was Bond, when they showed him running, smooth, just whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And this guy's like, ah, Hey, Mr. Dope. So yeah, if you want to check out The Night Agent, like I said, the first season was good. Second season was okay. Third season has been really slow so far, but the running is hilarious. It really is. So, all right, let's see. Ed says, I would like your opinion on something in the news. What are your thoughts on what Alacox said about not wanting men or dads to watch her film? Is that true? And could that tank the movie? I'm referring to Supergirl. I just realized I didn't say the word movie. Okay. That's not quite what she said. Now I don't have. Let's see if we can find that real quick. Billy Alcock not wanting dads. Okay, this is the response I get when I look this up, and it says Millie Alcock never actually stated that she doesn't want dads to watch Supergirl. Instead, she made headlines for mocking anonymous online trolls some of who identify themselves as Data for Christian, who were aggressively criticizing her casting and the tone of the movie. All right, so what this is someone took part of what she said and what she was talking about and ran with it. She is talking about these online trolls, and we all know they're there. They're the same ones that came out and bashed Captain Marvel when that came out, the Marvels when it came out. Anytime there's a female-led movie or TV show, they come out. The She-Hulk series, it's Miss Marvel. This group of people that think the only characters should be Captain America, white, played by Steve Rogers. You can't have a person of color. You can't have a female. That's wrong. That, of course, is not, Now, if somebody came out and said, look, I grew up on this character. It means a lot to me. And I want to see it like it was portrayed in the comics. I don't necessarily have a problem with that argument. But you have to be open-minded too. Now, Marvel has done a lot of gender and race swapping of late, and there's some characters that their race or gender didn't really matter to the character. Wonder Man being my first thought. The fact that Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is playing Wonder Man doesn't change the story. Because Wonder Man doesn't have that big of a backstory, doesn't have that big of a legacy. Where you get other characters like, say, James Bond, there's a certain air to James Bond, a certain arrogance and entitlement that comes with the character that you wouldn't get if he grew up as a person of color or as a female. It's not giving the same thing. It's not interchangeable. That said, I think Amazon, which now owns the James Bond license, should expand that universe and create other double O's and make an African American, African British, a person of color 007, a double O, a female 00 agent, just not James Bond. I don't even mind what they did in No Time to Die when they passed the 007 number on to someone else. No problem. But the character of James Bond and the arrogance, the whole way he carries himself, the persona, that doesn't work with a different type of upbringing. So, in that case, but when you have characters like Captain Marvel, to the original Captain Marvel, the fact that they switched that to Annette Bening, or Yahya Abdul-Mateen II as Wonder Man, stuff like that, I don't have a problem with, because those characters aren't so grounded in their upbringing and stuff like that. Steve Rogers would be a tough one because of when he grew up, stuff like that, where having Sam Wilson take on the shield and the mantle makes perfect sense. So, but there are people, I'm getting way off topic. There are people who think that TV shows and movies can only be led by white males. And those are the trolls that are out there that are coming out and attacking these things. And they've already been attacking Supergirl, the movie, and they've been attacking Millie Alcock herself, and that's just insane. So the fact that she's telling those people, look, if you don't want to see a movie with a female lead, don't. Don't go see it. We'll be fine. And, more power to her. I plan on seeing the movie. I will probably go see it in the theater, which I don't do a lot anymore. But, yeah, I'm in. I'm in for the movie. It looks great to me. The different trailers we've been seeing, the different TV spots, the scene where she's met by Kal-El or Clark, when she lands on Earth, the scene with her in the bar doing the arm wrestling. It looks like a good movie to me. I'm in. So, let's see. I can't believe no one's has done other 00 movies or a show. You think they'd try that, or do you think maybe they're afraid? This comes down to the Broccoli family. Barbara Broccoli, who took over for her father, Cubby Broccoli. They didn't want to expand it. They didn't want to try to mine it out, Dynamite, when they got the license, they made a Moneypenny comic one-shot. They made a Felix Leiter series. So they started doing that. But the bottom line is they, the Broccoli family didn't want to do that. They wanted to stick with James Bond, and that's it. So, yeah, I think it's a huge missed opportunity. I also think that if I was Prime, some of the things I would do. Number one is I would lean into the idea that Bond becomes a name that gets passed on, like M and Q. James Bond is an agent's name. I don't think they're going to do that. They're setting up, the video game First Light shows the origin of Bond, and then also I think it was Skyfall showed the family name meant something. So I don't think they'll do that. But I love that idea. That way you take all the movies and you pull them into one. Sean Connery was James Bond for a while, and then it moved on to Roger Moore. At one point it's a different agent took over, and that was Her Majesty's Secret Service. Then it went to Timothy Dalton. So it would make sense to make it all one. And then you could also include The Rock, which is, the movie everybody says is a secret James Bond movie anyway. So you could do those things and fans would embrace it. But we don't know what they're going to do yet. They still haven't announced, they finally have people looking for the next James Bond. So we'll have to see what they come up with. But James Bond is a character that I think is getting harder and harder to do nowadays, because so much of the character is set in the 50s and 60s. So that's what the Daniel Craig thing did, is it really modernized it. It took Casino Royale, the first James Bond story, and really modernized it really well too. That is probably my favorite Bond movie. So, with GoldenEye being second. So yeah, I think that Bond, like I said, needs to be the typical Bond, but you could do so much with the double O's. Um, you could do the Idris Alba thing, just make him 004. You could do um, Ana de Armas. She seems to be in everything. You could give Ana de Armas a double O and give her her own movie. And you could start putting these out on a more frequent basis. I mean, the last James Bond movie was what, 2021? Has it been that long? I mean, we've gotten a bunch of Benoit Blanc movies since then. So, who do you think you'd like to play the next Bond, or would you prefer someone we don't know already? Um, I've been seeing the list of people who are up for it, and I don't particularly like most of the list. There's one name that has come up recently, but mainly because he portrays the character in the new video game. Patrick, is it Gleason? Patrick Gleason? Yeah. He also played young Dexter for the recent Dexter series. He would be interesting, but I think I'd like for them to do kind of like they did with Daniel Craig. I want it to be somebody young enough that he's going to be around for 5, 6, 7 movies, old enough that he seems to have the gravitas and thick enough. I go back to the original James Bond books and stuff, and Bond is described as being kind of a thug. M refers to him as a blunt object or blunt instrument. And I think that works. I think Daniel Craig was great. As much as I love Pierce Brosnan, he might have been a little too suave. Timothy Dalton was pretty good. Roger Moore was too suave. Sean Connery was great. George Lazenby was probably the closest to what Ian Fleming actually wanted. So, I mean, okay. You guys remember me talking about a movie recently, the League of, no, it was the Bureau of Gentlemanly Warfare. That was a recent movie with from Guy Ritchie with Henry Cavill and Alan Ritchson. Well, that's based on a true story. Basically, it's based on the first time the British Secret Service did wet works. This was their wet works team. And Henry Cavill played the leader of the team. Well, Ian Fleming and Winston Churchill are the ones that put the team together, along with this general who I can't remember his name, but he was played by Cary Ells. But Ian Fleming was part of it, and supposedly the Henry Cavill's character is who he based James Bond on. So now Henry Cavill's probably a little better looking than the guy in real life, but overall, that was the idea. This kind of thuggish guy. They were wet works guys. They went in and did the dirty work. They sank a ship that was responsible for fueling all the U-boats. That made the U-boat fleet for the Nazis so powerful, and cutting off that supply line is the one that is really shut down them and allowed the seas to be open enough for the U.S. to enter the fray. So, Bond needs to be somebody a little, I mean, he needs to be able to pull off the suave moments, but he also needs to be able to be brutal. And that is something I loved about Daniel Craig, is those brutal moments were there. And you saw that Brosnan was able to do that, especially in oh, I'm thinking of the scene where he kills that girl, but I can't remember which movie it is. Can't remember which actress it is. Sophia Marcel or something. Anyway, Timothy Dalton could do it. Sean Connery could do it. Again, Roger Moore, as much as I like Roger Moore, and I grew up, that was the Bond when I was growing up. Again, I think he was a little too suave, a little too fancy. It says Timothy Dalton doesn't get enough love for being Bond. That is 100% true. And you guys know that he was originally offered the Bond role before Roger Moore, but turned it down because he thought he was too young at the time and didn't take it until he came back around again. Kind of the same thing that happened to Henry Cavill, except for they thought he was too young at the time and they gave it to Daniel Craig. So I would watch Henry Cavill as Bond. I would watch a lot of things like that, but they're they have to decide who it's going to be. And like I said, I think they're going to go with a young actor so they can get quite a few years out of him. But yeah, I look at the list and it's like Aaron Taylor Johnson, Callum something or other. It's like, none of them look like Bond to me. None of them feel like Bond. Hang on a sec, guys. Yeah. I'll do it as soon as I get off the air. Okay. How much? All right, I'll do it. Thanks. Sorry about that, folks. This will just take a second. So, yeah, let's see. Sounded like Doctor Who theme. That was. Lisa's theme is Doctor Who. So, Doctor Who's another one that they need to recast, but I think that's one that they ought to. Actually, had an idea about that. I wanted to call the instability matrix, where instead of having one Doctor Who, the new special would have a bunch of them, and they would kind of roll through different characters because the regeneration doesn't stick, and it keeps changing and changing, and you can go through a lot of different actors in an episode that way. And one of the ones I'd want them to go through would be John Pertwee, John Pertwee's son, who was, of course, Alfred on Gotham, but he's also the son of Doctor Who John Pertwee. Another one I'd want him to go through is Tom Ellis, who played Lucifer, who I think would be a great Bond. So, but that's just what I'm thinking on that. Sorry. Okay. Sometimes people want things done when you're not ready. Okay. My apologies to you guys. So yeah, I think Doctor Who would be a lot of fun to do. But like I said, if you had like a 3 or 4 episode series where the Doctor is constantly changing, and you could bring in some amazing actors who would love to have a turn at Doctor, but you know, Craig Ferguson popping up for one, that would be fun. You know, like I said, Peter Capaldi coming back. I still wanted, I wanted so bad for Craig Ferguson to be a guest when Peter Capaldi was the Doctor. And for those who don't know, Peter Capaldi and Craig Ferguson are old friends to the point that they were in a punk band together in Scotland when they were teenagers and young adults. So that would have been awesome because Craig Ferguson did a lot to promote Doctor Who here in the States when he had his late night show on. So let's see, something like Doctor Who theme. Yeah. My first Bond film I got to see was Moonraker. Loved it instantly, especially with Jaws and the bad guy. That was the closest to the superhero. You know, I think Moonraker was my first as well. Um, but my first comic convention, I've mentioned this before, where I met Jack Kirby. I also met Walter Koenig and Carolyn Monroe, who was promoting her James Bond movie. So, Doctor Who needs to cross over with The Question. Rimshot, nice. Did they Candle do special with Tennant Stone and John Hurt as the War Doctor? They did, but that was all the different doctors. My idea would be all new doctors. All the actors who've said they want to play the Doctor, but don't have time. They can't do a big series. The big name people, you know. Maybe Patrick Stewart's on there for like an episode, or Helen Mirren is on it for a few, like 20 minutes, that type of thing. But again, Sean Pertwee, I definitely would love to see. Actually, what I would do, and I, if I was writing it, I would make it. There's a moment where the Ronnie, the Master, and the Doctor are all regenerating at the same time, and because it's the same time, it throws the regeneration matrix into chaos. So all of them keep changing, you know, and by the time you get to the end of the 3 or 4 episode arc, you end up with a permanent master, or your new master, your new Doctor, and you bring back the Ronnie. And then I'd want Sean Pertwee to be the master going forward because I think he would be awesome. And I'd want Tom Ellis to be the Doctor going forward. But I don't get to do the show. They don't let me. They should, but they don't. So, all right, guys, let's get on to the big thing that dropped this week. You guys saw this, right? They made a practical Lex Luthor Battlesuit. It's not CG. It's not him in pajamas with a bunch of dots on it. He is physically wearing that suit. And this is a still shot they released, and I'm okay using that because they released it. But if you go online, on TikTok, on Twitter, on whichever is your poison of choice, there is footage of them filming with Nicholas Hoult in the suit, moving around in a fight with David Cornsweet on the streets, and it's glorious. It absolutely is glorious. because it's what we've always wanted. You know, I cannot, I can't not see Buzz Lightyear no matter how hard I try. I get that. But the fact is that that suit design was before Buzz Lightyear. I think they created that in '83, George Perez and Marv Wolfman. So, they're doing the suit from the comics. It's big, it's bulky, it makes sense that you would need to have all that to have the power to, take on Superman. And to me, that's awesome. You know, I love that James Gunn is leaning into the things that other companies would call absurd. Even Marvel has kind of leaned away from some of the Marvel stuff. You know, they gave Wolverine his yellow suit finally, but they still make these things look more leather and practical and militarized, and you know where it's not just spandex. James Gunn has said, no, we're going to build that big goofy suit. We're going to put it on screen. He's going to fight in it. He's going to move in it. You're going to see Nicolas Cage's head sticking out the top. And it's awesome. It says, yeah, it's been said before that Buzz was based on Luthor. I just think it's funny how times change, how you remember things. Yeah. Yeah. But that suit, we're finally getting it. And what's funny is that we have Spider-Man Brand New Day coming. We have Avengers Doomsday. But that's not what people are mainly talking about. They show a couple footage, some footage of them fighting in the streets, and that's what everybody's talking about. And it makes sense, It makes sense that they're creating this hype by simply letting people see behind the scenes. The Avengers movie was shot in super secret. No one could know anything. And DC's like, yeah, you can see it right there. It's on the street. You don't know what the plot's going to be. You don't know where in the movie that's going to take place. You haven't seen Brainiac yet. We still don't know who's playing who on some of this stuff. But, we're all talking about a movie that's coming a year from now. And that buzz is helping push Supergirl too, because now the Supergirl stuff is pushing the David Gordon sweats in it. And people are like, that scene of her first arriving, it's been positive. Most of the online discourse has been really positive about it. And I'm at a point now where I'm not used to people online liking things. They tend to hate everything. Even the Snyder Bros aren't outdoing the buzz. So the fact that DC is not being as secure and tight-lipped about their stuff as Marvel is may end up paying off for DC. Give them a chance to the free publicity. If we're looking around here and it's June of 2026 and this movie isn't coming out until July of next year, showing this stuff, that's free publicity. And what are you showing? Superman hitting Lex Luthor in a battlesuit. Okay. We all know the battlesuit's coming. They told us the battlesuit was coming in the very beginning. This makes me think of one of the biggest mistakes I made in comics. I have a book. It's part of the Obsidian Moon thing. It's called Unravel. Prior to that, I was shopping Unravel around as a TV show. And prior to that, I was doing it as a comic. And this is more than me just writing as scripts. We got picked up. This book, Unravel, got picked up by Image, Shadowline specifically, Jim Valentino. I had covers by Tone Rodriguez. I had interiors by an artist named Humeros Galani. And we had 2 books, I think, completely done. We were working on the 3rd. We had covers for all of them. And the first numbers came in, and we would have just broke even on the first book, which meant that issue 2 of all comics drop, usually about 40%, 40 to 50%. So if issue 1 was only breaking even, issue 2 would be a loss. So we ended up pulling the plug. Now, does that mean Unravel is a bad idea? I don't think so. Because I've had interest enough that it got picked up by Valentino. There was interest enough that some producers started working with me on it as a potential series that only got bumped because there was something else out there that had just debuted that was just similar enough to make people go, nah. But what I did wrong was there's a hook. There's something about it that should get people to want to read it. And I wanted that to be a surprise. I wanted that not to be revealed until the end of, I think, the first issue, maybe the second. I wanted the mystery. But I wanted the mystery at the cost of sales. Where this is a book with multiple layers of mysteries. But this main thing was the selling point. It's just what would have happened if, this is what would have gotten people to buy the book. Now, I'm not going to dance around it. I'll tell you what it is. Unravel is the story of a patchwork man, a Frankenstein's monster, being dropped in the lap of the NYPD in a modern day world, and all of the body parts come from unsolved mysteries. They're basically, he's a walking cold case file. So yes, he's a Frankenstein's monster, but he's not Frankenstein's monster, if that makes sense. I'm not retelling Frankenstein. I am just using the idea of a patchwork man, which has been done in other things as well. But so you've got this guy who's basically an entire body full of mysteries. Who killed this person that happens to be the arm? Or who killed this person that happens to be the head? You got all that mystery. Then on top of that, you got the mystery of who brought him back to life and put him together and why. So you had all this extra mystery that the selling point of basically this Frankenstein monster, I didn't use it when that was the selling point. And I think that's what DC is getting. Lex Luthor in the Battlesuit, that's the selling point. But you're not telling what the story is. You know, they did it in the original announcement too when they put out those pictures by Jim Lee and stuff like that, and Jorge Jimenez. They had Lex Luthor in the Battlesuit. So showing the Battlesuit now, showing uh, it on the streets, you're not giving anything away, but you're getting people excited about the property. So, I had to learn that the hard way with Unravel, but James Gunn seems to know. James Gunn's got that figured out. So let me catch up here. It's a chest plate and helmet. Eddie, the rest is. Oh yeah, they didn't. Yeah, they never did the full suit. He was basically in pajamas with the chest piece and helmet, and sometimes it wasn't even that much. It was mainly CG. So there was a practical suit, but it was, only used for like long plates and stuff like that to show it. Overall, it was mainly just, I don't think Robert Downey Jr. ever wore the full suit, where Nicholas Hoult is wearing the full suit and moving around on the streets and laying down and getting beaten and, Let's see. You happen to hear anything about how MOTU is being received, good, bad? Um, Money wise, it's not doing great. It's the second movie at the box office. It took in a little over 30 million. It got Scary Movie 6 or whatever it is did better. But the general opinion of the movie is the same as my Lisa's son's opinion. And I'm going to read you his opinion because, like I said, because he went to see it on a date. Let's see. He said, it was really good for what it was. I don't want to spoil it, but it was a little light on character development, as you would expect. A lot of characters were flat, but it was really humorous and had some great fight scenes. And that's kind of the opinion I'm seeing from everybody. They kind of stepped back and went, this isn't based on some amazing comic book or, some Alan Moore written story or a novel by Stephen King or George R. Martin. This is an adaptation of a toy line where half of the toys came from other failed lines. So if you go in and you're entertained for 2 hours or hour and a half or whatever it is, you get some good action, some good fight scenes, and some good laughs, it sounds like it's a job well done. And that's kind of, like I said, that's what seems to be the general consensus. I haven't heard anybody come out and say, oh my God, what a waste of money. That was horrible, because they're moderating their expectations, They're not going in looking for Shakespeare, so they're not coming out disappointed they didn't get Shakespeare. Pretty straightforward. So, yeah, it says I'm hoping for all the campiness like the TV cartoons. Yeah, that it sounds like that's what you get. Um, it sounds like they had fun making the movie, which to me always comes across. The only person that seems to be upset is Jared Leto, because they kind of downplayed his part. Yes, he's Skeletor. We never see his face because Skeletor has a skull for a face. So we don't need to see Jared Leto. But you hear him. So that's about it. I'm not going to go to the theater to see it, but when it pops up on streaming, I'll absolutely give it a watch. So, Actually, what I want to watch right now, and I'm having a real hard time doing it, is James Bond. I have yet to watch No Time to Die. With all the talk of First Light, the new James Bond game, and the new casting, I want to sit down and rewatch the Daniel Craig Bonds. I want to start with Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Spectre, Skyfall, or is it Skyfall, Spectre? And then No Time to Die. I want all 5 of them. I want to do them close together. Now, I own all of them, but the problem is that I don't know where Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace are because I've moved a couple times since they came out. So they could be in my storage unit. They could be somewhere around this place. I don't know. But none of them are available to stream unless you want to pay. You know, you go to Amazon Prime, you could rent them for $3.99. But to actually watch the movies, you know, it's not on MGM Plus, it's not on Amazon Prime, which owns the movies, not on Netflix or Hulu or Disney or HBO, any streaming service that I have, or even one I don't have. You know, it's not like, you know, oh, they're on Apple TV. Well, I don't have Apple TV. It's not even that case. They're not out there. And I don't just mean the Daniel Craig ones. None of the Bonds are out there, which is stupid because that's a big draw. If you want to put them on MGM Plus so people sign up for that, then do it, but make them available at least. Don't just hide them. So yeah, I'm trying to search around to find the other 2 so I can watch them all in order. If not, I'll just have to watch the final 3 and do my best to remember the first 2. So, yeah, see, that's what I agree, Ed. You already paid Prime member. Yeah, you shouldn't have to rent a movie. And why are we at a point when we have so many streaming services out there that just about every movie we want to see should be available on at least one of them? You know? If you wanted to see All the President's Men, you should be able to go see All the President's Men. You know? It just doesn't make sense. It's like the Red Sonja movie that just came out last year with Matilda Lutz. I haven't seen it yet. So I went out looking for it. You know where that's at available? It's free on Tubi. Great. They've made it available. So you download the Tubi app and you can watch it for free. Terrific. But so many of these other ones, it's like, what do you mean I can't go back and watch Mrs. Doubtfire? That's the kind of movie that should always be available. And it might be. I'm just pulling random movies now, but yeah. So yeah, the fact that if you have Amazon Prime, you should have access to all the James Bond movies. You know, I should be able to sit down and do a marathon, an all weekend marathon of Bond. Just Connery, Lazenby, Connery, more. Dalton, Brosnan, just, I should be able to inundate myself with James Bond. Especially right now with the video game having just come out. You know, this is the time to get people into the back, the catalog and stuff, but no, not available. It's dumb stuff like that, like pop figures. Do you know there's a pop figure for Sean Connery, for Roger Moore, for Pierce Brosnan, and for Daniel Craig? I've got them right over there. Is there a Timothy Dalton? No. George Lazenby? No. No. But if you're somebody who is a completist, you want all of those. But just to put out 4 of the 6 Bonds? That's silly. I don't know. Now I'm ranting. Oh, this has been a quick show already. So, I'm really looking forward to Supergirl. That's the funny thing. I was just thinking the other day. I grew up a Marvel kid. My first comic was Captain America 189. My uncle bought it for me from a 7-Eleven, gave it to me when I was 5 years old. I read it cover to cover multiple times, started collecting after that. That was my starting point. And I loved Marvel because I always felt like growing up, they were writing for adults, but at a level that kids could follow along. And if I came across a word that I didn't know the meaning of, I looked it up. I grabbed the dictionary. I asked an adult. I was actively engaged. I learned about Roman or Greek mythology and Norse mythology and some science and whatever else Stan Lee and his team put into the comics. I was there. Loved it. Hey, Mark, good seeing you, man. So I was, a Marvel kid growing up. I had DC books, but they always felt childish to me. Jimmy Olsen turned into a giant turtle. Lois Lane was trying to unmask Superman. Batman was in a rainbow-colored suit. I wasn't getting that over there with Spider-Man or Iron Man or my favorite Daredevil. And then we know the 80s hit and DC started taking things more seriously. I really got into Batman Year One and Man of Steel and stuff like that. And that's when I started reading DC, and collecting DC. But it was always Marvel a little above DC. But as I've gotten older, it's shifted a little bit. And it might be because Marvel was always the real world of superheroes. And DC was always a fantasy world. High fantasy versus low fantasy. If you don't know the difference in that, low fantasy is not an insult. It just means it's the everyday world with magic in it, with some difference in there, like superheroes. High fantasy, it's a completely different world. Yes, we're on Earth, but it's not New York. It's not Boston. It's Metropolis. It's Central City. It's Gotham. So DC is a little more high fantasy. That said, as you get older and you're dealing with the real world stuff, you want a little more escapism and a little less, I can't afford to get my aunt her medication. You want more of, there's this beautiful princess from another planet coming to Earth to pick a mate, and her eyes are set on me. So it changes. And where I really loved the MCU for a long time, somewhere along the way, the MCU started feeling like dread. Not that they were going to be bad, but something bad was going to happen. The Doctor Strange movie, I found myself putting it off, Multiverse of Madness, because of the scene with Black Bolt, or um, Guardians of the Galaxy, because I was sure people were going to die. And it's like, I don't know if I want to watch that. Hey, Chuck. So DC started getting me. And now, after watching The Batman, which I thought was just a masterpiece, and Superman, and Peacemaker, and Creature Commandos, and stuff like that, it's escapism again. It's being able to jump into this world and forget everything else. And for me right now, that is the bigger draw. I know we're getting Spider-Man Brand New Day, but do I really want to watch the fact that he's given up his entire life? He doesn't have the woman that he loves. His aunt's gone. It's just kind of depressing sounding. And then we're going towards Doomsday, and we know that the planet, there's going to be an incursion, and it doesn't feel like there's any joy in Marvel right now. I like when Marvel has joy. Shang-Chi was a great movie, but it was the first movie in a franchise tends to have that, this is something new, this is something fun, feel. And then we get to the second movie, and there seems to be all this weight and universe stuff put on it. Supergirl just looks like it's, a story about, it's a Supergirl story. Craig Gillespie, the director, said that James Gunn looks at these things as graphic novels, self-contained. They fit into the overall universe, but the story itself is self-contained. And I like that. And I like the fact that by the end of it, we're probably going to have a Kara who understands her place in the universe a bit more. It's about growth. It's about finding out who you are. And that seems to be a lot more enticing to me right now than the idea of, oh, we're going to reboot. We're going to change everything. We're going to have a lot of deaths. And it's like, I don't know. So what I'm just saying is that for some reason right now, I am more excited about Supergirl, Lanterns, Man of Tomorrow, The Batman Part 2, Return of Creature Commandos, Mr. Miracle. That stuff has got me more excited than Vision Quest, Doomsday. It's like, I used to rewatch all the Marvel movies. I have not rewatched Infinity War and Endgame because I enjoyed them. They're great movies, but they're so heavy at points. It's like I don't spend a lot of time rewatching Schindler's List either, or Gardens of Stone. Do you see a Lobo movie anytime soon? I see him in the trailer of Supergirl. Maybe that will be a happy movie. I think it really comes down to what stories they have. The fact that we've got a Clayface movie coming up tells me that James Gunn is about putting out good stories. That he's not necessarily doing everything for an overall. He's building a universe, which is awesome. So could there be a Lobo story? Absolutely. If somebody came up to him with a great Lobo story, but I think more likely is somebody will come up with a great cosmic story, and they'll find a way to make Lobo a big part of it. I've mentioned this one before. One of my favorite DC series was Adam Strange's Planet Heist. That would be an amazing book to translate into a movie or a series. And you could easily work Lobo into that. Easily. He could become a big part of it. So I think Lobo will be a supporting character unless somebody comes along with just an amazing Lobo story. But there really aren't a lot of Lobo stories to adapt. So unless they go and take the Simon Bisley one and think of him as their Deadpool, which could be, and just let it be absolutely insane, then yeah, I could see a Lobo story. All right, guys, we've gone a little bit over, but that makes up for having to deal with that phone call in the middle. But I appreciate you guys, all of you. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for hitting the like buttons and subscribe if you haven't. I will be back next week. I'm currently watching Citadel Season 2. You guys follow Citadel at all? I just found out last night watching it that one of the spinoffs they did 2 spinoffs, Citadel Diana and Citadel Honey Bunny. I didn't realize that Honey Bunny was actually the origin story of Nadia's character, one of the main characters in the main Citadel story. That added a lot of depth to it right there. So, but I'm only about 3 of the episodes into the 7. So hopefully by next week, I'll be done with that. And we'll start getting some new stuff soon. It's a little kind of a lull in the good stories right now. So hopefully we'll have some stuff soon. And we'll have more to talk about. And I'm sure we're going to have more footage. We'll probably get a picture of Brainiac at some point soon. We're probably going to get a new Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer. I still don't know when we'll get a Doomsday trailer. Probably not until next month. But all right, guys. So I'll see you all next week. Have a terrific Sunday night and a terrific week. And I will see you all